I once met a woman who was literally starving, living in a tiny room with nothing but faith and a dream. She came to me and said, "Florence, I have $7 to my name, and rent is due in 3 days. What do I do?" And I looked at her with all the love in my heart and said, "Darling, you're looking at the wrong bank. The bank of God never closes, never runs out, and your account there has been full since before you were born." Now I know what you might be thinking. You might be rolling your eyes right now, wondering if this is just another pretty spiritual idea that sounds nice but doesn't pay your bills or heal your heartache. I understand. I've been there. I've held eviction notices in my trembling hands. I've watched my own bank account drain to nothing. I've felt that crushing weight in your chest when you don't know where the next dollar, the next opportunity, the next breath of hope is coming from. But here's what I discovered that changed absolutely everything, and it's what I'm going to share with you today. There is an unlimited source of supply that exists right now, in this very moment, and it has nothing to do with your current circumstances, your past mistakes, your education, or who you know. This supply is governed by spiritual law, as precise and reliable as the law of gravity. And once you understand how to work with it, everything shifts. That woman I mentioned? She walked out of my office that day, spoke her word of faith, and within 48 hours received a check in the mail from a source she hadn't thought of in years. Not $7, not 70, but 700, exactly what she needed, with extra besides. This isn't magic, this isn't luck, this is law. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to claim what's already yours from the Bank of God. Because, darling, you've been standing outside a vault filled with your good, and you've had the key in your pocket this whole time. You just didn't know it was there. Now, let me tell you something that might shock you. Most people treat God like a stingy banker who's looking for reasons to deny their loan. They approach with their hat in their hands, apologizing for even asking, hoping maybe, just maybe, they'll get scraps from the table. But that's not how the Bank of God operates. That's not how it's ever operated. The Bank of God doesn't deal in scarcity. It doesn't have limited funds or strict lending requirements based on your credit history. The entire vault is yours already. Your name is on it. Every blessing, every miracle, every answered prayer exists right now in the invisible realm, waiting for you to make your withdrawal with the right mental attitude. You see, the universe doesn't respond to begging, it responds to claiming. There's a massive difference between the two, and once you understand it, your entire life shifts. When you beg, you're operating from lack. You're saying, "I don't have, and I probably don't deserve, but maybe if I grovel enough." When you claim, you're operating from spiritual law. You're saying, "This is mine by divine right. I accept it now." I knew a woman once who came to me absolutely desperate. Her business was failing, creditors were calling, and she was about to lose everything she'd worked years to build. She kept saying, "I'm praying so hard, Florence. I'm begging God every single day." And I stopped her right there. "Stop begging," I said. "Start claiming." We worked together on changing her entire approach. Instead of panicked prayers filled with fear and desperation, she began to make firm declarations. Infinite supply now manifests in my business. All my financial obligations are met with divine ease. I am a clear channel for God's abundance. She said these things not as wishes, but as facts. As law being set into motion. Within 3 weeks, everything turned around. A client she'd forgotten about paid an old invoice. A new opportunity appeared from an unexpected source. The money didn't just trickle in, it poured. And she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "It was there all along, wasn't it? I was just blocking it with my fear." Exactly. The supply was there. The Bank of God never closed. She just wasn't making proper withdrawals. She was standing outside the bank during business hours, crying about being broke, instead of walking through the door with her rightful claim. This is what I see constantly: people with vast spiritual wealth sitting in their accounts, untouched, while they beg for scraps. They pray for pennies when they have access to unlimited abundance. They ask God to help them make it through the week when they could be claiming divine supply for a lifetime. The universe doesn't respond to begging, it responds to claiming. When you beg, you're operating from lack. You're saying, "I am poor, I am desperate, I am without." And the universe, which is simply a mirror of your consciousness, says, yes, you are. Here's more evidence of your poverty. But when you claim, oh, that's entirely different energy. When you claim, you're standing in your power as a child of the infinite. You're not asking if you can have something. You're acknowledging that it's already yours in the spiritual realm, and now you're bringing it into physical manifestation. You're not begging for mercy, you're accepting your inheritance. There's a statement I give people that changes everything. I am one with God, therefore I am one with my good. Say it slowly. Feel the truth of it. You are not separate from Source. You are not disconnected from your supply. The same power that creates worlds is the power that flows through you right now, in this very moment. That power doesn't play favorites. It doesn't choose some people for prosperity and others for poverty. It responds to consciousness. If your consciousness is filled with fear, lack, and limitation, that's what you'll experience. If your consciousness is filled with faith, abundance, and expectation, that becomes your reality. It's law. It's mathematics. It's as reliable as gravity. I knew a man who was brilliant, truly brilliant, but he couldn't hold on to money. It slipped through his fingers like water. He'd get a windfall and immediately face an unexpected expense. He'd receive a raise and his rent would increase the same amount. He was trapped in a cycle that seemed almost cosmic in its cruelty. When he finally came to me, exhausted and confused, I asked him one simple question. What did your father teach you about money? His face changed immediately. He taught me that rich people are greedy, he said quietly. That money corrupts, that it's better to be poor and honest than wealthy and compromised. There it was, the invisible wall. This man had been fighting against his own success his entire adult life, not because he lacked talent or opportunity, but because deep in his subconscious mind, prosperity meant becoming everything his father had warned him against. To succeed financially was to betray his father's values, to prove himself morally corrupt. I see this pattern everywhere. A woman sabotages every promising relationship because her mother told her all men leave eventually. A talented artist keeps his work hidden because a teacher once said, people like us don't make it in the art. A business owner unconsciously drives customers away because she grew up hearing, it's selfish to have more than you need. These aren't just beliefs. They're agreements we made with reality when we were too young to know better. They're contracts signed in the invisible ink of childhood trauma, family loyalty, and inherited fear. And they bind us more completely than any legal document ever could. The fascinating thing is that your subconscious mind doesn't care whether these agreements serve you. It only cares about keeping them. Your conscious mind might desperately want financial freedom, but if your subconscious believes that poverty equals virtue, it will work tirelessly to keep you poor. It will make you forget to send the invoice. It will give you a stomachache on the day of the important interview. It will whisper that you don't deserve it, that you're not ready, that it's safer to stay small. This is what I mean when I say your subconscious is both gatekeeper and saboteur. It guards what it believes to be true about reality, even when those beliefs are destroying your life. But here is where the power lies. The subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. It accepts what you impress upon it, with feeling and repetition. This is not theory. This is mechanical law. When you speak a word with conviction, with the full force of your belief behind it, your subconscious begins to rearrange the invisible architecture of your life to match that word. I have seen this countless times. A woman came to me drowning in debt, her business collapsing, creditors at her door. Every morning she woke to panic. Every night she fell asleep rehearsing disaster. I told her, stop arguing for your limitations. Stop giving your subconscious evidence of lack. Instead, morning and evening, she began to declare, I am surrounded by right action. Infinite supply flows to me now. At first, the words felt hollow. Her circumstances screamed the opposite, but she persisted. She spoke them until they began to resonate in her bones. Within weeks, unexpected checks arrived. A client she had forgotten paid an old invoice. A new opportunity appeared from nowhere. Within months, her debt was gone. She did not work harder. She did not manipulate or scheme. She simply stopped feeding her subconscious the image of failure and began feeding it the image of supply. The outer world had no choice but to conform. This is what I mean when I say your word is your wand. You are not begging the universe for favors. You are not trying to convince God to change his mind about you. You are aligning your inner conversation with the truth that already exists in the invisible realm. You are claiming what is already yours by divine right. But most people use their words to cement their bondage. They say, I can't afford it. And the subconscious says, yes, master, you cannot afford it. They say, I always get sick in winter. And the body obeys. They say, nothing ever works out for me. And life delivers more evidence of that belief. You are decreeing your experience every moment, whether you realize it or not. The question is not whether you are using this law. You are. The question is, are you using it consciously or unconsciously? Are you the author of your inner narrative, or are you letting fear write the script? Most people are unconscious script writers. They rehearse disaster in the morning shower. They narrate their day with words like, I'm so tired, I can't afford that, nothing ever works out for me, and then they wonder why their reality feels exhausting, limited, and disappointing. But here's what changes everything. The moment you become aware of your inner script, you gain the power to rewrite it. Not tomorrow. Not after you've achieved something. Right now. This very moment. I want you to understand something profound. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge whether your thoughts are true or false, helpful or harmful. It simply accepts what you repeatedly tell it as instruction. It's like the most loyal assistant you'll ever have, except it takes everything literally. Tell it, I never have enough, and it will work tirelessly to prove you right. Tell it, I am divinely guided to my highest good, and it will orchestrate circumstances to match that truth instead. This isn't about lying to yourself. This is about recognizing that your current script was installed without your conscious consent anyway. Someone else's fears became your fears. Someone else's limitations became your boundaries. And now you're walking around performing a play you never auditioned for, reading lines you never agreed to speak. The shift happens when you stop being the actor and become the director. When you catch yourself saying, I'm terrible with money, you pause. You don't fight it. You don't shame yourself. You simply recognize it as an old script, and you choose a new line. I am learning to manage money wisely. Abundance flows to me easily. Does that feel uncomfortable at first? Absolutely. Your ego will protest. It will say, but that's not true. Look at your bank account. And here's where faith enters the conversation. Not blind faith, not wishful thinking, but the kind of faith that understands. Your current circumstances are the result of yesterday's thinking. Your new script is creating tomorrow's reality. And here's what most people never realize. The universe doesn't respond to your desperation. It responds to your assumption. When you're constantly checking the mailbox, refreshing your bank account, asking, where is it? You're not affirming abundance. You're affirming lack. You're scripting from the feeling of not having. But when you write your new story from the place of already being that person, already living that life, the energy shifts completely. I once knew a woman who wanted to move from a cramped apartment to a beautiful home with a garden. For months, she complained about her small space. She told everyone how badly she needed to move. Nothing changed. Then someone taught her about mental scripting. Instead of complaining, she began to live as if she already had what she wanted. She bought fresh flowers each week, the kind she'd put in her future garden room. She acted as though space was abundant. She spoke about, when I'm in my garden, instead of, if I ever get a garden. Within 6 weeks, an unexpected opportunity appeared. A family friend needed someone to house-sit a cottage with a garden for almost nothing. She lived there 2 years, then bought her own place. The circumstances didn't shift because she wished harder. They shifted because she stopped energizing the old story of lack and began embodying the new one. This is what I mean by rewriting your life script. You're not pretending. You're not lying to yourself. You're making a deliberate choice about which story you're going to tell, and more importantly, which story you're going to believe and live from. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you repeatedly script yourself as confident, successful, peaceful, loved, your subconscious begins to accept this as fact. And what the subconscious accepts, the outer world reflects. So let me ask you, what story are you telling about yourself right now? Not what you want to be true someday. What story are you actually living inside? moment to moment. Because that story, my friend, is your real script. And it's playing out in your life with astonishing accuracy. Now, here's where most people hit a wall. They think changing the story means sitting down once a week and visualizing for 10 minutes while their inner dialogue screams the complete opposite the rest of the time. That's not rewriting, that's wishful thinking with a meditation cushion. Real story changing happens in the trenches of your daily thoughts. It's catching yourself mid-spiral when you're catastrophizing about money and stopping to ask, is this the script I want to direct my life? It's noticing when you're narrating your relationships with resentment and actively choosing a different interpretation of the same facts. Because here's something crucial. The facts of your life are neutral until you wrap them in meaning. Your bank balance is just a number. Your last conversation is just words that were exchanged. The opportunities you see or don't see are filtered entirely through the story you're already telling. 2. People can live virtually identical circumstances, and one sees tragedy while the other sees transformation in progress. Same facts, completely different stories, completely different lives. I once knew someone who was let go from their job. The story they first told themselves was, I'm not good enough. The economy is terrible. I'll never find something better. I'm too old to start over. That story had them paralyzed for months, applying half-heartedly to positions beneath their skill level, vibrating at the frequency of defeat. Then something shifted. They didn't get a new job first, they got a new story first. The story became, this is making room for what's actually meant for me. I'm being redirected toward my real work. Doors are opening in ways I haven't even imagined yet. Same unemployed person, same bank account draining, but different story. And within weeks, not months, weeks, an opportunity appeared that had been invisible to them before because they weren't vibrating at its frequency. The story you're telling yourself right now is creating a vibrational address, and life can only deliver to the address you're broadcasting. You can't be living in the frequency of nothing ever works out for me and expect packages meant for everything is always working out for me to arrive at your door. So you've got to change the story. Not because the old story is morally wrong or makes you a bad person, but because it's not getting you where you want to go. It's not opening the doors you want opened. It's keeping you locked in a pattern that no longer serves you. And here's what I want you to understand. Changing your story doesn't mean lying to yourself. It doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect when it's not. It means choosing a new interpretation of the same facts. Let's say you've been rejected 5 times this month. The old story says, see, I'm not wanted. I'm not good enough. This is proof that I'll never succeed. The new story looks at the same 5 rejections and says, I'm being redirected. Something better is lining up. Every no is clearing the path for the perfect yes. I'm being protected from what's not meant for me. Same facts, completely different frequency, completely different outcome. Because when you tell yourself the second story, you don't collapse. You don't quit. You keep moving, keep showing up, keep vibrating at the level of someone who knows their good is on the way. And that vibration is what magnetizes the breakthrough. I've watched this happen over and over again. The person who treats setbacks as setups keeps going just long enough to hit the opening. The person who treats setbacks as proof of their unworthiness stops 3 feet from gold. Your story determines your stamina. Your story determines whether you're in the game long enough to win. Now, some of you are thinking, but what if I change my story and nothing changes? What if I do all this inner work and my circumstances stay exactly the same? Here's the truth. Your circumstances might not change overnight, but your experience of those circumstances will transform immediately. And that shift in experience is what changes everything downstream. When you stop resisting what is, when you stop arguing with reality, when you stop making your current circumstances mean something terrible about you, you free up a massive amount of energy. Energy that was locked in resistance, in resentment, in fear, and that energy becomes available for creation, for inspiration, for aligned action, for seeing opportunities you were blind to before. And here's what I know to be eternally true. The universe doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to certainty. It doesn't answer begging, it answers claiming. When you speak as though it's already done, when you feel as though it's already yours, when you give thanks before you see the evidence, that's when matter rearranges itself to match your inner conviction. I've watched this unfold time and time again. The woman who couldn't pay her rent but affirmed, "Infinite Spirit, you are my supply. My needs are met abundantly and instantly." 3 days later, an unexpected check. A forgotten account. A spontaneous gift. The universe always has a way, but you must open the way with your word. The man who was passed over for every promotion, year after year, until he stopped complaining and started declaring, "I am in my right place, doing my right work, and I am greatly rewarded." Within a month, a position opened, one he hadn't even known existed, perfectly suited to his gifts. His employer sought him out. You see, when you're in alignment, the universe doesn't just give you what you asked for. It gives you something better than you imagined. Because divine intelligence knows the perfect outworking of your desire. Your job isn't to figure out how. Your job is to stay faithful to the end. And what does that mean practically? It means when doubt creeps in, and it will you speak your word again. You don't entertain the worry. You don't rehearse the problem. You turn immediately back to the truth. That is an illusion. The truth is, I am supplied. I am guided. I am divinely led. It means you watch your words like a hawk. You stop saying, "I can't afford it." Instead, you say, "That's not where I choose to spend right now." You stop saying, "I never meet the right people." Instead, you say, "My perfect relationships are seeking me now." Language matters because words are thoughts made flesh. It means you act as if. You dress for the life you're claiming. You make space for what's coming. You clear the clutter. You prepare the room. If you want the relationship, buy the extra pillow. If you want abundance, create beauty with what you have now. If you want the career, walk like you already have it. This isn't pretending. This is pretending, tending to the garden before the seeds break ground. You're cultivating the soil of your consciousness so that when the manifestation arrives, it has a prepared place to land. And here's what most people miss. The preparation itself is part of the manifestation. When you clean out your closet to make room for new clothes, you're not just organizing, you're declaring to the universe that you're ready. When you practice your acceptance speech in the mirror, you're not being delusional, you're being available. I knew a woman who wanted to write a book, but kept saying she had no time. I told her, "Set your table as if you're already an author, create the space." She cleared her kitchen table, bought a beautiful notebook, placed fresh flowers beside it every morning. Within 2 weeks, she was waking up early to write. The ritual prepared her consciousness. The outer action triggered the inner shift. This is why affirmations alone often fail. You can say, "I am wealthy," 1,000 times, but if you're living in chaos, treating your belongings carelessly, and speaking lack over your finances, your subconscious doesn't believe you. But when you organize your wallet, balance your accounts with respect, dress as though you honor yourself, now you're speaking a language your deeper mind understands. Your subconscious doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you demonstrate. So, when you're waiting for your manifestation, ask yourself, how would I be living if this were already true? Not in the big, external ways that require the thing itself, but in the small, internal ways that only require your decision. Would you be more patient? Be patient now. Would you be more generous? Be generous now. Would you carry yourself with more confidence? Stand taller today. You're not mimicking the future, you're creating the frequency that magnetizes it. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you fully inhabit the consciousness of having, you often realize you already have more than you thought. Not because your circumstances suddenly changed, but because your perception did. You see the abundance that was always present but invisible to your contracted state. The waiting becomes fullness. The preparation becomes the prize. And the manifestation, when it arrives, feels less like a miracle and more like a homecoming, because you've already been living there in consciousness. You've already prepared the room, set the table, opened the door. All that remains is for the physical world to catch up to the reality you've been faithfully tending in the invisible. And when the physical does catch up, and it will, it always does, there's something I must prepare you for. Because this is where many stumble, even after they've done everything right. When your demonstration arrives, when that check appears, when that call comes, when that door opens, you must receive it as though you always knew it was coming. Not with shock, not with desperate gratitude that sounds like relief, not with the energy of finally, after all this time. Because that energy says, I was in lack, and now I'm rescued. And we don't build our demonstrations on the consciousness of rescue. We receive from overflow, from expectation fulfilled, from the simple, quiet knowing that this is how things work in my world. I've seen people pray and affirm and visualize for months, and then when the thing arrives, they grab at it. They clutch it. They thank everyone with an energy that reeks of surprise and scarcity. And you know what happens? The demonstration often slips away again, or it comes with complications, or it never quite settles into permanence. Because the way you receive is just as important as the way you ask. When you receive with surprise, you're actually denying the consciousness that created the demonstration in the first place. You're saying, I can't believe this happened, which is quite literally a statement of disbelief. And the universe, always listening, always matching, responds to that frequency. But when you receive, with gracious acknowledgement, yes, thank you, this is lovely, as if you've just been handed the coat you ordered, exactly as specified, exactly on time, now you're in alignment. Now you're receiving from the consciousness that knows this is natural, normal, expected. This is how supply flows in my world. This is how doors open in my experience. This is the rhythm of my life. And from that consciousness, the demonstration doesn't just arrive, it stays. It multiplies. It becomes the foundation for the next unfoldment and the next, until you're living in a continuous stream of gracious receiving. This is the part they don't tell you in most teachings. They tell you how to ask, but not how to receive. They tell you about manifesting, but not about maintaining. They give you the prayer, but not the practice of living, as though prayer is already answered. So, let me give it to you straight. Your job is not just to call your good to you. Your job is to be someone who naturally receives good, someone who expects it, someone whose inner world is so saturated with the feeling of fulfillment that when the outer demonstration appears, it feels like coming home, not like winning the lottery.